Welcome to the 2026 New York City Housing Authority's Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program briefing. Let's discuss NYCHA's mission. It is to increase opportunities for low and moderate income New Yorkers by providing safe, affordable housing and facilitating access to social and community services. Now, before we get started, write down any questions that you may have. You may call the Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771, Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. if you have any questions. Today we will walk you through the Housing Choice Voucher, HCV, Section 8 program. We will provide an overview of the HCV Section 8 program, the responsibilities of the New York City Housing Authority, the family, and the owner or landlord under the program. The Housing Choice Voucher, subsidy, occupancy and payment standards, utility allowance schedules, your housing choices, fair housing and equal opportunity, federal inspection standards requirements, the next steps after finding the right unit, owner rental documents, applicant and tenant responsibility, and how to contact NYCHA. We will now present an overview of the Housing Choice Voucher, HCV, Section 8 program. The Housing Choice Voucher, HCV, Section 8 program is a federally funded program that provides rental assistance to eligible families. Section 8 eligibility is based on the total family gross annual income and family size. The rent subsidy is paid directly to the owner, and the family pays their portion based on the family's income to the owner as well. In addition, all units must be inspected prior to moving in and regularly thereafter. Now we will discuss the responsibilities of NYCHA, the family, and the owner. First, let's discuss NYCHA's responsibilities. In administering the Section 8 program, NYCHA must do the following: explain the rules and regulations of the program, issue vouchers and pay housing assistance payments, HAP, to the owner on behalf of the voucher holder, ensure all units in the program meet federal inspection standards by conducting new rental, regular, special, and quality control inspections. Ensure all units meet Section 8 program requirements. Conduct an annual review of the family's income and composition information to determine continued eligibility. And comply with all applicable federal, state, and local non-discrimination and fair housing laws. Next, the family's responsibilities. The family is responsible for finding a vacant unit. However, the owner of the unit cannot be an immediate family member unless a reasonable accommodation is approved by NYCHA. Submitting complete, accurate, and timely information and documentation to NYCHA. Please be mindful, the HUD Enterprise Income Verification EIV database will be accessed 120 days after admission and annually thereafter. Under the EIV database, the EIV Income and Income Validation Tool, IVT, reports will be used to verify all information provided by the family regarding amount and source of income and deductions from income to identify any unreported or underreported income sources. The family is also responsible for waiting for NYCHA to sign the HAP contract with the owner and email the family the move-in letter, waiting to receive the move-in letter before moving into the unit, signing a private lease with the owner, and complying with the terms of the lease. Additional family responsibilities. The family must comply with the annual review of family income and composition information, for example, marriages, births, adoptions, deaths, etc. This helps NYCHA determine a tenant's continued eligibility. Comply with requests for additional information. Cooperate with NYCHA for all inspections. The family must also alert NYCHA and the owner if they wish to terminate the lease. Also, notify NYCHA and the owner before moving out. Follow the terms of the lease. Pay for any utilities that the owner is not responsible for. Maintain any appliances that the owner is not required to provide. And finally, ensure that the unit complies with the federal inspection standards and any issues must be reported to NYCHA. And finally, the owner's responsibilities. The owner must sign and comply with the HAP contract and the lease, comply with New York State landlord-tenant law and local housing law, comply with the Federal Fair Housing Act as well as all applicable federal, state, and local laws which prohibit discrimination against an individual or family. Screen the family before executing the lease. Disclose to NYCHA prior to rental if the voucher holder is a relative of the owner. The owner must also maintain the dwelling unit in accordance with federal inspection standards, collect the share of the rent from the tenant and not request additional rent or side payments of any kind, contact NYCHA when there is an unauthorized family move or a deceased tenant, and pay for utilities and services, unless paid for by the family under the lease. This triangle illustrates the partnership between the tenant, NYCHA, and the owner. The document binding the tenant and NYCHA is the HCV Section 8 voucher. The tenant must comply with all family obligations, rules, and regulations to remain enrolled in the program. The document binding NYCHA and the owner is the Housing Assistance Payment, HAP, contract. The owner must also cooperate with the rules and regulations of the program to continue to receive payments. And lastly, the document binding the owner and the tenant is the lease agreement, which is a contract between the tenant and the owner. We will now review the Housing Choice Voucher. In this section, we will discuss the Housing Choice Voucher. The Housing Choice Voucher is the document that authorizes you to search for an eligible Section 8 unit. The voucher will show the number of bedrooms the household is entitled to, the issue and expiration date, and the household's responsibilities under the Section 8 program. The voucher term is 180 days for applicants. The 180 days includes an initial voucher term of 120 days, plus an automatic 60-day extension. Please note, if a voucher has expired and the household has not submitted a rental package for NYCHA's approval, the household will be removed from the waiting list and required to reapply when NYCHA is accepting applications. NYCHA may extend the voucher timeframe for good cause. A good cause may include, but is not limited to, receiving an approved reasonable accommodation request. The approved reasonable accommodation request will make the Section 8 program accessible to a household member with a disability. Reasonable accommodations can be filed online via NYCHA's Tenant Self-Service Portal by calling the Customer Contact Center, CCC, at 718-707-7771, or by visiting a walk-in center. The voucher extension request must be made at least 7 to 10 days before the voucher expires. If a reasonable accommodation is granted, the voucher will be extended 60 days. This is important. If you are porting in from another public housing agency, PHA, your NYCHA voucher will already include a 30-day extension from the initial voucher expiration date. Let's discuss suspension of the term of the voucher. During the initial or extended term of the voucher, the family is required to submit the Request for Tenancy Approval, RFTA, form before the voucher expires, which is usually 180 days for most voucher holders. The family must also submit all other required rental documents. Once the RFTA form is submitted to NYCHA, the clock on the voucher term is stopped or suspended. NYCHA will then notify the family and inform them if the RFTA has been approved or denied. If the RFTA is denied, the suspension is lifted and the voucher term resumes. This process applies to all families who are leasing a unit. If a family submits a RFTA and decides to cancel the request, the remaining voucher time is suspended. In these cases, the suspension ends when NYCHA learns of the cancellation. For portability cases, the requirement to suspend the term of the voucher applies to NYCHA only. Section 8 vouchers are not for sale. Do not give the voucher to anyone, including the owner, landlord, agent, or property manager. When you find a place to live, show the voucher to the owner along with the rental package documents. You need to confirm with the landlord that the apartment will meet the federal inspections requirements and pass initial inspection. Also confirm the apartment must be in move-in condition for the initial inspection. Beware of voucher scams. The Section 8 program does not require you to use a broker to find an apartment. NYCHA does not charge or request a fee to apply for Section 8 or rent for Section 8. If you receive a request for payment from anyone posing as NYCHA personnel, report it to the NYC Department of Investigations, NYCHA Inspector General, at ig@nycha.nyc.gov or 212-306-3355, or the HUD Office of Inspector General at 800-347-3735, or www.hudoig.gov/hotline. This is what your housing choice voucher will look like. It will include your voucher number, unit size, which is the number of bedrooms you are eligible for, the date your voucher is issued, and an expiration date, which is 180 days from your voucher issuance date. Now we will discuss the Section 8 subsidy standards, occupancy standards, and payment standards. Let's start with subsidy standards guidelines. The unit size on the voucher is determined by who is a member of your household. The number of people in the household will equal the number of bedrooms. For example, single-person applicant households are eligible to receive a one-bedroom voucher. You should also know, applicants may rent a unit with more bedrooms if the rent is equal or lower to their voucher payment standard. We will discuss voucher payment standards in a moment. Non-emergency transfers for Section 8 tenants must be cost neutral. This means the new apartment's gross contract rent must be the same or lower than your current apartment's. The gross contract rent is the total of your contract rent plus any utility allowances. Here are additional subsidy standards guidelines. In addition, applicants may rent a smaller unit than their voucher size, and NYCHA will pay the subsidy based on the payment standard of the smaller apartment. Please note, no more than 2 people may occupy any living or sleeping room. Applicants and participants with pregnant household members may be eligible for an increased voucher size. NYCHA may grant an exception to its established subsidy standards if it determines that the exception is justified by the age, sex, health, disability, or relationship of household members or other personal circumstances. If you feel your household requires a larger unit to accommodate a household member's disability, you should submit a reasonable accommodation request to NYCHA for approval. You can obtain the reasonable accommodation request forms by calling the NYCHA Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771. Occupancy standards are based on family composition. You can try to find a larger apartment as long as it is within the voucher payment standard. Applicants and participants with pregnant household members may be eligible for an increased voucher size dependent upon total family composition, as stated in the HCVP occupancy chart. And now let's discuss NYCHA's payment standards guidelines. The payment standards are set at 103% based on the 2026 HUD Fair Market Rent, FMR. Payment standards set the maximum monthly amount of housing assistance payment, HAP, for the family before deducting the total tenant payment by the family. Payment standards matter because this is the maximum monthly amount of subsidy NYCHA will pay for a unit. Take a look at the chart on the right. This is NYCHA's current payment standards effective January 1st, 2026 for new rentals and transfers. Here are additional NYCHA payment standards guidelines. NYCHA may approve an exception payment standard up to 120% of the applicable fair market rent, FMR, without HUD approval as part of an approved reasonable accommodation request. If you feel your household requires an increased payment standard to accommodate a household member's disability, please submit a reasonable accommodation request to NYCHA. You can obtain the reasonable accommodation request forms by calling the NYCHA Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771. On the next 6 slides, we will discuss NYCHA's Section 8 utility allowance schedules. Slide 1 of the utility allowances. For tenants who are responsible for paying their own utilities, NYCHA will provide a utility allowance. The tables on the slides represent the utility allowance effective January 1st, 2026. Slide 2 of the utility allowances. This table shows the cooking gas and electric allowance. The gross rent, or the total cost of housing, is calculated by adding the rent paid and the utility allowance for the unit. If the utilities are included in the rent, then the rent to owner and the gross rent will be the same number. Slide 3 of the utility allowances. For tenants who are responsible for paying their oil, heat, and hot water. This table shows the oil, heat, and hot water allowances NYCHA will provide. Slide 4 of the utility allowances. For tenants who are responsible for paying their gas, heat, and hot water, this table shows the gas, heat, and hot water allowances NYCHA will provide. Slide 5 of the utility allowances. For tenants who are responsible for paying their electric heat, hot water, and electric cooking range utilities, this table shows the allowances NYCHA will provide. Please note, the electric cooking range allowance includes electric and use of the electric stove. Slide 6 of the utility allowances. For tenants who are responsible for paying their heat pumps, this table shows the heat pump allowances NYCHA will provide. Please note, this allowance includes heat pumps in apartment buildings and single-family homes. Now we will review your housing choices. The 40% rule ensures the affordability of a new rental. It ensures affordability for new admissions and moves when the gross or total rent exceeds the payment standard. This is to protect the tenant. It permits you to rent an apartment that exceeds the payment standard. However, your share of the rent will be 30% of the adjusted gross income, plus any amount that exceeds the payment standard. NYCHA will not approve your Section 8 rental if your share of the rent is over 40% of your gross adjusted income. Upon an initial lease-up, the tenant is prohibited from paying more than 40% of their annual income towards rent. A reminder, gross rent, or the total cost of housing, is calculated by adding the rent paid and the utility allowance for the unit. Moving within New York City. Voucher holders have the option of living anywhere in the 5 boroughs of New York City. First-time Section 8 voucher holders have the option of remaining in their unit provided it meets the federal inspections requirements and the rent is reasonable. The rent does not need to be within the payment standard to be an approved unit. The rent may exceed the standard, but must be affordable. Upon an initial lease-up, the tenant is prohibited from paying more than 40% of their annual income towards rent. The illustration shows the 5 steps for moving within New York City. Step 1. Search for a unit. The voucher term is 180 days for applicants. This includes an initial voucher term of 120 days plus an automatic 60-day extension. Step 2. Return/submit the rental package. The owner can submit the rental package online via the owner extranet using the approved voucher PIN letter, or email the paper rental package to s8.rtu@nycha.nyc.gov. Step 3. Rental package review. NYCHA reviews your request for tenancy approval. Step 4. NYCHA inspects the unit. Upon approval of the rental package, a NYCHA rep will contact the owner regarding scheduling the apartment inspection. If the unit passes inspection, then a HAP contract is generated. And Step 5. Move in. The rental is not final until the HAP contract is returned to NYCHA along with a fully executed lease, and NYCHA issues the HAP approval letter. Moving outside the New York City area is called portability. Voucher holders have the opportunity to live anywhere in the U.S., Puerto Rico, or the U.S. Virgin Islands as long as there is a Section 8 program administered by a public housing agency in that area. Portability refers to the process of when the voucher holder can request to use the Section 8 voucher in a location outside of the 5 boroughs of New York City. For VASH participants, contact your VA caseworker for additional portability rules. The illustration shows the 4 steps for moving outside of New York City. Step 1. Submit the portability request. NYCHA will review the portability request to determine eligibility. Upon approval, NYCHA will issue you a portability voucher that will be active for 180 days. Step 2. NYCHA will forward your portability packet to the PHA you choose. You can contact the receiving PHA after NYCHA sends your packet to them. Step 3. Search for a unit. The receiving PHA will issue you a voucher for their jurisdiction so you can start your apartment search. You must find a new unit within the voucher term specified by the receiving PHA. And Step 4. Move in. The receiving PHA will notify you of your move-in date. When you receive approval to move in, you and the receiving PHA must notify NYCHA. Let's prepare your portability voucher. Before moving to another jurisdiction, you must submit the voucher holder request for portability form and receive approval from NYCHA for your request. If you are an active NYCHA Section 8 participant, this process can be initiated online by clicking Portability Transfer via the Tenant Self-Service portal. If you are an active NYCHA Section 8 applicant with a voucher, email the request to s8portability@nycha.nyc.gov. You must be a tenant in good standing with NYCHA to port out. This includes no eviction proceedings, subsidy terminations, and you must be current with your Section 8 annual income recertification. Also, obtain the name, address, telephone, and fax number and contact person of the housing agency in the area you want to move and submit it to NYCHA. Note: you must inform NYCHA at least 2 months before your Section 8 voucher expires. If you are already a Section 8 participant with an open 5-borough within New York City transfer request, you must first cancel your transfer request in writing and then ask for a portability transfer. Here are a few things to keep in mind when porting. The advantages of portability allow families the flexibility to relocate with Section 8 assistance. However, you should familiarize yourself with your potential location before deciding to move there. Some consider relocating for a new job or school, proximity to other family members, increased choices for a home, etc. Comply with all the rules and regulations of the receiving housing agency, which may differ from NYCHA. Portability procedures in the new jurisdiction could be different from NYCHA's. It is important to seek information and pay close attention to requirements at both housing agencies. These policies are applicable under portability. Once you port out, the receiving public housing agency, PHA, sets the standards for the program. The receiving PHA will set and manage the following: the income limit applicable to the family, voucher extensions available for searchers, voucher payment standards, suspension of voucher term after submission of request for tenancy approval, policies and procedures related to tenancy, Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, verification of citizenship or request for criminal background checks where applicable, executing the first lease under the voucher, and subsidy standards. Searching for housing in low poverty areas will help you gain access to the following: higher quality housing, improved employment opportunities, playgrounds and better schools, community and educational resources, and shopping and public transportation. New York City Census Tracts. For your reference, this is a map showing New York City's population below poverty by census tract. This map is also included in your briefing packet. The NYCHA Housing Opportunities Map is a resource that Section 8 voucher holders can use to find rental listings, job opportunities, schools, transportation, and other services in low poverty neighborhoods. You can access this map on NYCHA's Section 8 Tenant Self-Service portal. As shown on this flyer, there are many resources online that can be used to search for available units. Log on to the Tenant Self-Service portal to view exclusive Section 8 listings from owners registered with NYCHA. Screening the owner. Make sure to find out all the information you may need before signing a lease. These are suggested questions to ask the owner or broker before renting from them. What is the monthly rent for the unit? Have you rented with Section 8 before? Have you rented this unit with Section 8 before? Will the rent include utilities, and if so, which are included and which am I responsible for? Are there any fees to use the amenities at the property? Are there any fees associated with moving, such as broker fees or security deposits? This next section will discuss fair housing and equal opportunity. NYCHA is committed to providing equal housing opportunities for all qualified residents and applicants. NYCHA strictly prohibits discrimination in the selection of residents or participation in any programs, services, or activities implemented by or on behalf of NYCHA. All residents and applicants are protected from discrimination based on the following categories: race, color, national origin, religion or creed, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, familial status, disability, age, immigration status, lawful source of income, military service, pregnancy, status as victim of domestic violence, sexual harassment, sexual violence or stalking, marital or partnership status, presence of children, lawful occupation, height, weight. If you believe you or others have been discriminated against on the basis of any of the categories detailed in this policy, please immediately report it to the Office of EEO, Fair Housing and Access Services, EFAS, by emailing efas@nycha.nyc.gov, calling 212-306-4468, or visiting the office at 250 Broadway, 10th floor, New York, New York, 10007. EFAS's EEO and Fair Housing Investigations Unit will be able to provide further assistance to advise on next steps. All communications with EFAS investigators will be kept confidential. For more information on EFAS and its investigations unit, please visit www.efas.gov. www.nycha/site/about/policies-procedures.page or www.nyc.gov/site/NYCHA/about/contact.page. Discrimination based on lawful source of income is the illegal practice by landlords, owners, and real estate brokers of refusing to rent to current or prospective tenants seeking to pay for housing with housing assistance vouchers, subsidies, or other forms of public assistance. It is a violation of NYC human rights law to discriminate based on source of income in housing. Nearly all rentals, including apartments located in co-op and condo buildings, are covered under this. If you feel you have been discriminated against, you may contact the New York City Commission on Human Rights at 718-722-3131, New York State Division of Human Rights toll-free hotline at 888-392-3644, and or file a complaint with HUD's Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity at 1-800-669-9777. Please note, NYCHA will provide the voucher holder with a list of outside agencies with whom they can file claims. NYCHA provides language assistance to limited English proficiency, LEP persons, to promote their meaningful access to NYCHA's programs and activities in accordance with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development notice entitled Final Guidance to Federal Financial Assistance Recipients regarding Title VI Prohibition against National Origin Discrimination affecting limited English proficient, LEP persons. NYCHA has a standard procedure implementing the HUD guidance regarding language assistance, which applies to the HCV program. A reasonable accommodation in housing is a change or modification that provides a qualified individual an equal opportunity to participate in or benefit from a program or activity. Some examples of who qualifies include those with medical or chronic health issues, mobility impairments, physical disabilities, visual impairments, etc. Some types of reasonable accommodations include transfer to a more accessible unit, an additional bedroom for a live-in aid, and apartment modifications, ramps, lower cabinets, etc. Reasonable accommodations can be filed online via NYCHA's Tenant Self-Service Portal, calling the Customer Contact Center, CCC, or visiting a walk-in center. Here are policies related to persons with disabilities. NYCHA will make reasonable accommodations to persons with disabilities to ensure that they may fully access and use the Section 8 program and related services. NYCHA will provide an opportunity for an applicant or participant to request an accommodation on the application and other forms. This policy is intended to afford persons with disabilities equal opportunity to obtain the same results and gain the same benefits as those who do not have disabilities. The individual making the request must meet requirements outlined in the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988, Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the New York State and New York City human rights laws. NYCHA will review all requests and will make a determination based on the information provided. In accordance with Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, if the need for the accommodation is not readily apparent, the family must explain the relationship between the requested accommodation and the disability. In order for NYCHA to approve a request for reasonable accommodation, the applicant or participant may be required to submit documentation from a medical professional to support the request. NYCHA may deny the request if, among other reasons, it will cause an undue financial or administrative burden or will change the fundamental nature of the program. NYCHA will notify applicants and participants in writing if it denies the request. Here is information about VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act. VAWA is a federal law providing protections for applicants, tenants, and families assisted in the Section 8 public housing and other HUD-funded programs. Under VAWA, victims of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking may not be denied admission to, denied assistance under, terminated from participation in, or evicted from Section 8 assisted housing on the basis of or as a direct result of the fact that the applicant or participant is or has been a VAWA victim. Under the regulations, NYCHA can terminate HCV program assistance to those who commit acts of domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, or stalking against household members. VAWA also enables owners to evict abusers by bifurcating a lease to remove a person who has committed the abuse. The regulations also permit NYCHA to terminate HCV program assistance to VAWA victims or owners to evict VAWA victims on independent grounds unrelated to their status as VAWA victims. We will now discuss federal inspection standards requirements. In the inspection process, NYCHA adopted the non-life-threatening NLT provision from PIH Notice 2017-20 HA, effective September 1, 2018, for the Section 8 program. With this provision, NYCHA updated its definition of life-threatening LT violations and may approve the rental of a unit that fails for non-life-threatening conditions with the voucher holder's consent. Here is the updated list of 24-hour life-threatening LT violations: gas, natural or liquid petroleum, leak or fumes; electrical hazards that could result in shock or fire; inoperable or missing smoke detector; interior air quality, missing or non-functioning carbon monoxide detector; gas, oil-fired water heater or heating, ventilation, or cooling system with missing, damaged, improper, or misaligned chimney or venting; lack of alternative means of exit in case of fire or blocked egress; other interior hazards. Deteriorated paint surfaces as defined by 24 CFR 35.110 in a unit built before 1978 that is to be occupied by a family with a child under 6 years of age. Any other condition subsequently identified by HUD as LT in a notice published in the Federal Register, and any other condition identified by the administering PHA as life-threatening in the PHA's administrative plan prior to April 18, 2017. These conditions include building in imminent danger of collapse and illegal window gates on fire escapes. More information about the non-life-threatening NLT provision for the inspection process. All apartments subsidized under the Section 8 program must meet federal inspection standards requirements. NYCHA will not approve a unit that fails for any life-threatening conditions. However, if the unit fails the inspection for non-life-threatening NLT conditions only, you will have the following options. 1. Wait until repairs are made. 2. Continue your housing search. Or 3. Accept the unit with NLT conditions. NYCHA will notify you if the unit fails the inspection for NLT conditions only. You will have the opportunity to accept the unit with the NLT conditions. If you accept the unit with NLT conditions, please note that the owner has 30 calendar days from the HAP contract effective date to complete the repairs. If repairs are not completed within 30 calendar days, the subsidy will be withheld. If the owner fails to make the necessary repairs within 60 calendar days, NYCHA will issue a transfer voucher to you. You will need to find another apartment and submit a completed rental packet before the transfer voucher expires to receive Section 8 assistance. Let's discuss the federal inspection standards. HUD established inspection standards to define the minimum criteria for safe housing. The federal inspection standards require that every Section 8 unit have heat, hot and cold water, and an operable window in each living room and bedroom. In addition, all units must have a private bathroom and a fully equipped kitchen. However, there are exceptions. A private bathroom and kitchen is not required if a participant is residing in a single-room occupancy (SRO) unit. All SROs may not have a private bathroom and kitchen for residents. All units receiving Section 8 assistance must meet the federal inspection standard requirements before move-in and throughout the assisted tenancy. In addition to the established inspection standards, units and buildings must comply with the INSPIRE standards for carbon monoxide and smoke alarms. The full implementation of INSPIRE was postponed until February 1st, 2027. To expedite your move, it is important that the unit must be in move-in condition prior to the inspection. These are the top 5 reasons units fail inspections. Smoke/carbon monoxide alarms. Missing alarms or installed in the wrong location. Ceiling and wall paint conditions. Bubbling, chipping, cracking, damaged, or peeling. Floor conditions. Floor tiles are cracked, damaged, loose, or missing, or tripping hazards. Electrical hazards. 3-pronged outlet not wired properly. Window conditions. Improperly installed, missing window guards, or incorrect screws used to install the guards. Note: if the unit fails for new rental or transfer inspections, NYCHA may authorize the rental of a unit if it fails for non-life-threatening NLT conditions only. Here's what you need to know about lead-based paint. Buildings built before 1978 may contain lead-based paint. An owner must disclose to you the presence of any lead-based paint in the unit. Lead found in paint, paint chips, and dust may pose serious health hazards, especially to young children. More information about lead paint is provided in the Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home booklet in your packet. The following 2 slides list the names of individuals, management firms, and entities that NYCHA cannot engage in business with. Therefore, when searching for a unit, please do not attempt to rent a unit in buildings owned or managed by any of the names listed on the 2 slides. Please call the Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771 with any questions about this list. This section will review the next steps after finding the right unit. Here are the 6 steps for the lease-up process. Step 1. The applicant completes the online application. Next, NYCHA reviews the application. Step 2. Searching for a unit. The applicant will receive a PIN letter and voucher. The voucher term is 180 days for applicants. This includes an initial voucher term of 120 days, plus an automatic 60-day extension. Step 3. Submit the rental package. The owner can submit the rental package online, via the owner extranet using the PIN letter, or email the paper rental package to s8.rtu@nycha.nyc.gov. Step 4. NYCHA reviews the rental package. Step 5. NYCHA inspects the unit. Upon approval of the rental package, a NYCHA rep will contact the owner regarding scheduling the unit inspection. If the unit passes inspection, then a HAP contract is generated. And Step 6. The move-in. The rental is not final until the HAP contract is returned to NYCHA along with a fully executed lease, and NYCHA issues the HAP approval letter. Let's review the rental packet. Rental packets are submitted electronically via NYCHA's owner extranet. Eligible applicants and tenants will be issued a voucher PIN letter, which will contain a PIN for the owner to complete the rental packet on the owner extranet. The voucher PIN letter will also instruct applicants and tenants on how to review and approve the rental packet documents using the Tenant self-service portal. Note: if a paper rental packet is required, please call the Customer Contact Center, CCC, or visit the walk-in center nearest you. You found the right unit. Now, let's discuss submitting the rental packet online. Bring the voucher PIN letter and the copy of the voucher to the owner. After the owner submits the rental documents online, the applicant should log in to the Tenant self-service portal. Click the Rental/Transfer Voucher Status tab on the portal and review the documents submitted by the owner. If the information on the documents is accurate, at the bottom of the screen, the applicant or tenant must electronically sign and approve the rental packet. If the information on the documents is inaccurate, the applicant or tenant may reject the rental packet and contact the owner to have it resubmitted with correct information. You or the property owner must return your paper rental packet before the voucher expires. Rental packets are accepted via email. The owner must complete all required documents and send the PDF documents via email to s8.rtu@nycha.nyc.gov. NYCHA walk-in centers are open to the public. The voucher holder or owner also can submit the completed rental documents at the nearest walk-in center. No appointments are needed to drop off documents. However, appointments must be scheduled for all other reasons by calling the NYCHA Customer Contact Center or visiting on.nyc.gov/NYCHA-CCC-APPT. If you have questions, call us at 718-707-7771, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. When returning your rental packet, keep the following 5 tips in mind. First, return the packet with all pages together and in page order. Second, do not use whiteout on the forms. If you need a new form, print out a new one. Third, do not cross out or draw lines on the documents. Fourth, only write in the boxes on the forms. And fifth, you may only submit one request for tenancy approval at a time. NYCHA will review the rental packet and verify all information submitted. If the packet is complete, NYCHA will move forward with processing your request. If NYCHA does not approve the rental packet, the owner and the applicant/tenant will be notified. Next, a NYCHA representative will contact the owner to schedule the apartment inspection. If the unit or building fails inspection, NYCHA will notify the owner and give an opportunity to complete the necessary repairs. The owner will call the CCC to schedule a re-inspection once repairs are completed. If the unit passes inspection and all required documentation has been reviewed and approved, NYCHA will contact the owner to sign a HAP contract. After NYCHA has executed the HAP contract, your approval letter to move in will be emailed to you. You may move into the apartment only after you receive the final move-in letter notifying you that the HAP has been approved. The letter will inform you of your share of the rent and NYCHA's share of the rent. This is very important. You should not sign a lease with the owner until after the unit is approved by NYCHA. Once you move into the unit, you must comply with tenancy requirements. We will now review owner rental documents from the rental packet. The applicant or tenant must log in to the NYCHA Tenant self-service portal at www.selfserve.nycha.info to view the property owner documents. If the applicant or tenant opted out of paper documents, provide the following documents to the owner. Or, if the applicant or tenant misplaced the documents, please log in to the NYCHA Tenant self-service portal and print the property owner documents. You must print these 4 documents for the owner and you to complete. We will provide more information about the documents. 1. A Section 8 property owner registration form. 2. A request for taxpayer ID number and certification for the owner. 3. A request for tenancy approval. This form requires both tenant and owner signatures. 4. A disclosure of information on lead-based paint and/or lead-based paint hazards, which require both tenant and owner signatures. If you do not have a printer, you can print the documents at a NYCHA walk-in center. This is an example of pages 1 and 5 of the Section 8 Property Owner Registration Form. In this document, the owner enters information about the tenant, building, dwelling unit, and ownership information. It is important that the exact legal name of the owner is the same as the name that appears on the deed. The owner may enter a physical address or a P.O. Box address. This is an example of the W-9, Request for Taxpayer ID Number and Certification. A P.O. Box address cannot be used for this form. These are pages 1 and 2 of the Request for Tenancy Approval form. The owner must complete this form. It must be signed by the owner and participant. In Box 3, the owner must enter the lease start and end dates, but does not have to submit a copy of the lease. Box 4 must include the exact number of bedrooms in the unit and, if built after 1937, current certificate of occupancy, CO, is required in Box 5. In the same document, the owner must also specify fuel type and who pays the utilities. These are pages 3 and 4 of the Request for Tenancy Approval form. Signatures are required from both the applicant and the owner. These are pages 1 and 2 of the lead-based paint disclosure form. Signatures are required from both the applicant and the owner. In addition, the owner must submit the following documents. If your unit is rent stabilized, a copy of the previous lease or Division of Housing and Community Renewal form. If the unit was built after 1937, another required document is the Certificate of Occupancy, or CO. If a certificate of occupancy is not available, a letter of no objection from the NYC Department of Buildings must be submitted. In addition, a copy of the deed must be submitted. If the deed is unrecorded, the owner must also submit a letter from the closing attorney. Certain exceptions apply. Please refer to the Rental Packet Checklist, NYCHA Form 059.132, in your briefing packet for a complete list of requirements. We will now review responsibilities of the applicant or tenant. As a Section 8 participant, you must do the following every year. Complete and submit the affidavit of income for all household members annually. This includes submitting any supporting verification, e.g., pay stubs, receipts. Provide access to NYCHA and HUD inspectors to inspect your unit. Obtain permission from both NYCHA and your owner when adding new members to your household. The exceptions include birth, adoptions, and court-awarded custody. Please note, NYCHA performs criminal background and sex offender checks on all new household members who are 16 years of age and older. To keep your Section 8 voucher, you must follow the program obligations. Comply with all program requirements, including completing your annual recertification on time, allowing access to your unit for inspections, and providing access to the owner for necessary repairs. Comply with all terms of the lease, including timely payment of the tenant's share of rent. Ensure that only authorized household members live in your unit. Unauthorized occupants are not permitted to live in the unit and may lead to termination of your subsidy. The unit must be your sole residence. Do not remain absent from the unit for more than 180 days. Do not sublease the unit or any room in the unit. Provide truthful and complete information. Do not submit false statements or documents. Notify the PHA before vacating your unit. Do not move without prior approval. Here are more program obligations. Do not use, possess, sell, or distribute illegal drugs anywhere on the premises. Do not abuse alcohol in a way that threatens the health, safety, or right to peaceful enjoyment of other residents. Do not threaten or intimidate NYCHA personnel. Do not engage in any violent, criminal, or dangerous activity. Do not engage in any activity that threatens the health and safety of the owner, property management staff, or other residents and neighbors. Do not engage in any activity that threatens the right of other residents to peacefully enjoy the premises. Note: these requirements apply to all residents in the household, including other family members and guests. If you want to add a household member, you must first submit a request through the NYCHA self-service portal before adding any new household member, and wait for written approval from NYCHA before the person moves into the unit. As part of your request, you must provide the following documents listed below. Third-party verification consent to release information. This form must be signed by all household members 18 years of age or older. Debts owed and terminations. This form must be signed by all household members 18 years of age or older. Declaration of citizenship status. Copy of the birth certificate. Copy of the Social Security card or alien registration card or I-94 number. Proof of income, assets, and expenses. Section 8 participants seeking a non-emergency move to a different unit must submit a completed and signed transfer request form. A participant will receive a non-emergency transfer for any voluntary move. The transfer voucher is valid for 120 days. NYCHA will issue an automatic 60-day extension, giving the family a total of 180 days to search for another unit within New York City. Additional voucher extensions will require NYCHA's approval. When using your non-emergency transfer voucher, your new rent and utilities cannot be higher than your current rent and utilities. This means the new apartment's gross contract rent must be the same or lower than your current apartment's gross contract rent. For example, if you currently reside in a 2-bedroom apartment and are responsible for paying for the cooking gas and electricity, and your current rent is $2,000 and your utilities are $181, this means $2,181 is your total housing cost. Therefore, the new unit's rent and utility allowance has a limit of $2,181 or less. Please note, even if the payment standard is $2,997 for a 2-bedroom unit, you are capped at your current housing cost of $2,181. You may submit a transfer request online using the Tenant self-service portal after you have resided in the unit for a year. After submission of the transfer request, you will receive a transfer approval letter by email. When you receive the email, log back into the Tenant self-service portal to sign the voucher and print both the voucher and the PIN letter. The steps are as follows. Click on the Rental/Transfer Voucher box. Click on the Rental/Transfer Voucher Status tab. Click on I confirm and type your name. Then click Submit. Go to the Lease Up Documents tab to print the PIN letter. Show the voucher and provide the PIN letter to the prospective owner to begin the lease-up process. You may submit an emergency transfer request online using the Tenant self-service portal. A participant will receive an emergency transfer for a move. The transfer voucher is valid for 120 days. NYCHA will issue an automatic 60-day extension, giving the family a total of 180 days to search for another unit within NYC. Additional voucher extensions will require NYCHA's approval. A transfer is prioritized as an emergency if it falls into one of the following categories: 24-hour failed HQS inspection, such as a gas leak or fire; natural disaster, such as a hurricane or earthquake; court action, holdover proceeding in housing court based on a landlord's choice not to renew a lease; foreclosure action in order to vacate. The owner fails to be financially responsible for the property. Reasonable accommodation. A participant or household member qualifies as disabled and the disability requires a change in housing. A reasonable accommodation form and a letter from the health provider are needed. VAWA. A Section 8 participant, including the head of household, a household member, or an affiliated individual, meets the definition of a VAWA victim as described below. Victim of domestic violence, VDV. A victim of a felony or misdemeanor crime of violence committed by a household member, current or former spouse or intimate partner of the victim, by a person with whom the victim shares a child in common, by a person who is cohabitating with or has cohabitated with the victim as a spouse or intimate partner, by a person similarly situated to a spouse of the victim under the domestic or family violence laws of the jurisdiction receiving grant monies, or by any other person against an adult or youth victim who is protected from that person's acts under the domestic or family violence laws of the jurisdiction. The term spouse or intimate partner of the victim includes a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim, as determined by the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. HUD considers the definition of domestic violence to include economic abuse and technological abuse, as defined in the following slides. Dating violence victim. A victim of violence committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim, and where the existence of such a relationship shall be determined based on a consideration of the following factors: the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Sexual assault victim. A victim of any non-consensual sexual act proscribed by federal, tribal, or state law, including when the victim lacks capacity to consent. The U.S. Department of Justice Office on Violence Against Women, OVW, further clarifies that the definition includes sexual activity such as forced sexual intercourse, sodomy, molestation, incest, fondling, and attempted rape. It includes sexual acts against people who are unable to consent either due to age or lack of capacity. Stalking victim. A victim of a course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to fear for the person's individual safety or the safety of others, or suffer substantial emotional distress. OVW further clarifies that this course of conduct can be repetitive and may include frightening communications, direct or indirect threats, and harassing a victim through the internet. Additionally, it is not limited to situations where the perpetrator is someone with whom the victim was in any specific type of relationship. HUD considers the definition of stalking to include economic abuse and technological abuse, as defined in the following slide. Intimidated victim, IV. To qualify as an IV, the participant is the victim of a violent crime or a threat of a violent crime, and such crime was committed in a non-random manner as a result of a relationship between the victim and the perpetrator, and the participant or their immediate household has suffered actual physical injury or threat of injury and will continue to suffer by continuing to live in the current residence. Intimidated witness, IW. Participant cooperates with the law enforcement agency in the arrest and prosecution of an individual who committed a crime, and then the participant or their immediate family suffered actual physical injury or threat of injury. Economic abuse. Behavior that is coercive, deceptive, or unreasonably controls or restrains a person's ability to acquire, use, or maintain economic resources to which they are entitled, including coercion, fraud, or manipulation to 1. Restrict a person's access to money, assets, credit, or financial information. 2. Unfairly use a person's personal economic resources, including money, assets, and credit for one's own advantage. Or 3. Exert undue influence over a person's financial and economic behavior or decisions, including forcing default on joint or other financial obligations, exploiting powers of attorney, guardianship, or conservatorship, or failing or neglecting to act in the best interests of a person to whom one has a fiduciary duty. Technological abuse. An act or pattern of behavior intended to harm, threaten, intimidate, control, stalk, harass, impersonate, exploit, extort, or monitor, except as otherwise permitted by law, another person that occurs using any form of technology, including but not limited to internet-enabled devices, online spaces and platforms, computers, mobile devices, cameras and imaging programs, apps, location tracking devices, or communication technologies, or any other emerging technologies. If you need assistance, contact NYCHA. NYCHA is available 24/7 online. Section 8 tenants and applicants can access information about their case/application online via the Tenant Self-Service Portal at selfserve.nycha.info. To use the portal, you must be listed as the head of household. New portal users will be required to register. To register, click Register. As a new portal user, you will be prompted to create a unique username and password to log in. If you are already registered, enter your username and password, then click Login. Registered Section 8 voucher holders may use the 24/7 online portal to view basic case information, complete their annual recertification and upload supporting documents, request an interim recertification and upload supporting documents, search for available Section 8 units, view their inspection date, request a reasonable accommodation or modification, including a request for a higher payment standard to accommodate a household member with a disability, request a 5-borough or portability transfer. NYCHA is available by phone. Section 8 tenants and applicants can call the Customer Contact Center, CCC, Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 718-707-7771. 2. Request a reasonable accommodation or modification, including a request for a higher payment standard to accommodate a household member with a disability. Update your personal information, for example, email address, telephone number, mailing address, etc. Communicate changes in your tenancy and ask Section 8 questions. Need NYCHA assistance? To contact us with Section 8 questions, call the Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771, Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. To access the Tenant Self-Service Portal, go to selfserve.nycha.info. To visit the NYCHA Walk-In Center, schedule an appointment at on.nyc.gov/NYCHA-CCC-APPT. If the owner wants to schedule a reinspection, call the Customer Contact Center at 718-707-7771, Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. This concludes the New York City Housing Authority's Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program briefing.